Well, welcome everyone to the On Purpose Show, where we unite compassionate healthcare providers and also empower the community to find the precise healthcare options that they need for the best possible outcomes. Thank you all so much for being here. We're so excited to have another episode of the On Purpose Show. My name is Alyssa, and this is my co-host, Martha. Welcome, welcome.
Welcome, everyone. I'm super excited, again, just as Alyssa is, to have another episode of the On Purpose Show. I would love to get us started, but before I begin, my name is Martha Aguilar. I am born and raised in Jersey girl, through and through. Latina background, Jersey girl. And so, yeah, I'm on the other side of where you guys are currently at, which is fun. So yes, it is 3:33 p.m. for me. Yes, it is. And I'm super excited to be here. But before we get started, I'd love to introduce our guests and follow up with a question on what is a fun fact about yourself. So maybe you could get that cooking in your brain. Let's begin. Kristina Maria, coming from Victoria, British Columbia.
That's
Funny.
right.
I was talking to Alyssa and I was like, I've never really met anyone who's from British Columbia or had ever said that, because obviously I'm a Jersey girl. So Kristina Maria is a functional nutritionist with expertise in functional integrative medicine and microbiota.
I don't know if you say it, Maria.
Sounds good.
Awesome. She founded the company Mind Mood Microbes. Oh my gosh, MMM. She and her colleagues specialize in assisting individuals with conditions such as mast cell activation syndrome, IBS, IBD, SIBO, autoimmune diseases, and more. The approach at MMM involves applying functional medicine principles to address health issues related to the mentioned conditions. Welcome, Kristina. Thank you so much for being here. And what is a fun fact about yourself?
Yeah. So I love doing colonics for people. Have you guys ever had a colonic?
Yes.
Okay, so I love
Going.
doing colonics. I don't get to do them very much anymore because I'm sort of more in the background of things now, so I don't get to do some of the hands-on things with clients anymore. But I've done a couple in the last month and I just love it every time. If you're one of those people who likes popping a pimple, that's what it's like when you do it for someone, and it's just like so much relief for them.
Right on. That's cool. Love it.
That is a fun fact, and I learned something new. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I'd love to now introduce Brandon Duncan, coming from Vancouver, Washington. Woo woo, Brandon Duncan, functional health
Perfect.
wellness practitioner, offering virtual consultations. Brandon specializes in chronic fatigue, weight loss, thyroid disorders, blood sugar dysregulation, and metabolic disorders. He has pursued extensive postgraduate functional medicine education, completing his Doctor of Chiropractic degree at the University of Western States in 2006. He focuses on identifying and addressing the root causes of health issues, guiding clients in addressing factors like poor diet, heavy metal toxicity, mold, stealth infections, and hormonal imbalances. Brandon, what is a fun fact about yourself that you could share?
Hello, everybody. Thanks for the intro. I appreciate it. I think a little fun fact about me that not too many people know. I actually lived in Salzburg, Austria when I was 10 years old for 6 months, which was pretty fascinating. My mom actually, she did a school abroad doing an art program over there through University of Illinois. And she moved my sister and I over there in Salzburg, Austria. We lived in this great little home downstairs from this Frau that lived on top. We rented the bottom half of her house, and we had the Untersberg in our backyard. If you guys ever seen The Sound of Music,
Yes.
that lake that they're on, we actually walked by it every single day, by the mansion. My mom's school is actually right next to that mansion from the movie The Sound of Music. It was so cool. And it was a great experience, right? We actually went to schools to learn German, where they send the immigrant children from Yugoslavia, Czech Republic, and it was schools only about 3 hours a day, so it was pretty nice and quick. But we started learning a lot of German. When I was getting actually pretty fluent, I think a few more months I would have been completely fluent. It was a pretty cool experience, and we'd travel around. We'd go to Italy, we'd go to Switzerland for the weekend, and hop on the train and go to Prague, and it was really cool. Had a really cool experience. So anyway, a little fun fact about me that not too many people know. I realized recently, but anyway,
Awesome.
yeah, it
I
was
love
really
that
cool.
fun fact.
Yeah, good stuff.
That's a bucket list right there.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I want to go back. I know my wife's parents live over in Belarus, right next to Poland. We're actually trying to plan a trip this summer to go visit them, meet them in Germany or Poland. I think that would just be phenomenal. So that's
That would
something
be.
we're working on, which is exciting. So anyway,
Totally.
yeah, very
Well,
cool.
thanks for sharing that, Brandon. Thanks
You
for
bet.
sharing your fun fact as well, Kristina, about doing colonics. I think all of us here have experienced that except for Martha. So Martha, you're going to have to one of these days join the club.
Long overdue.
Yeah.
Long overdue.
Right.
Well, awesome. Thank you again, Brandon, for sharing. And before we get started, it is 2014 and she weighs just 93 pounds and can hardly get out of bed. With no real solutions from doctors, one thing for sure was her determination to not give up and to begin searching for answers. Her discovery of functional medicine became a passion for helping others avoid and eliminate pain. In 2016, she completed functional nutrition school and 2 years later started her health coaching business. A year later, she watched her father go from being very active and fit to sedentary with major muscle atrophy from debilitating sciatic pain. She was introduced to soft wave therapy, an exciting breakthrough option in the field of regenerative medicine. And after becoming a certified soft wave technician and treating her father, he was pain-free. And since then, many others have had similar outcomes and have said that they have gotten their lives back. And this is our host, Alyssa Hargan.
Yay.
Alyssa, what is a fun fact about you?
Fun fact about me. So this morning while I was eating breakfast, the sun was shining. It was beautiful, warm, about 55 degrees. And I went outside and sat on our little patch of green grass out by our lake, which is like a really giant mud puddle, and grounded. So I put my feet on the wet grass and got some grounding in, and it just felt so relaxing. The birds were chirping, and that was super fun.
Awesome. I love it. That's a great one. Try to do that every day. It's amazing, right? Yep.
Right.
Good stuff.
That I only have concrete right around me, so
Yeah. Got to go to Central Park, huh? Find some grass.
I sure do. I sure do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Alyssa, I'd love for us to get started on the show and what we got cooking.
Absolutely. Let's do it. Brandon, Kristina, who wants to go first? You have
But ladies first, or I can go first if you like. Either way.
Not that one.
We'll start with Kristina since you're so kind to offer, Brandon.
Yeah, sure.
So Kristina, thank you again for being here. And I am so curious how you got into all that you like. Let's go back to the beginning. What inspired you to go into functional medicine, the whole 9 yards? We'd love to hear that.
Yeah, I mean, like so many, it started with my own health issues. So I had things going on from when I was a teenager. When I was a teenager, I had, that's when I started having more like sleep issues and insomnia. And of course, the doctors just give you like sleeping pills. I don't even remember what I was taking at the time. Went to university and was doing my undergrad, and my brain just kind of stopped working. And previously I had been a straight A student, and I was like, it really shouldn't be this hard. Like this isn't normal for my brain. And anyways, just kind of like powered through my undergrad and forced myself to get through it, and had a plan that after I was finished my undergrad, I would go traveling. And so I had done my undergrad in Halifax, Nova Scotia, so left Halifax and then spent 2 years traveling and living in Central America. And while I was down there, of course, I got sick a couple times, and one of the times it was really persistent and it wouldn't go away. So I ended up taking the antibiotics that the travel clinic had given me, and they'd given me ciprofloxacin. Without any warning about ciprofloxacin in the black box warning. And so I take the ciprofloxacin, and it must have wiped out whatever the infection was, but then slowly things just started incrementally getting worse and worse and worse. And so I started developing like a lot of food sensitivities. The insomnia started getting even worse. And so coming to the end of that 2 years in Central America, I was like, okay, I got to go back to Canada and figure this out because it's not resolving itself. So I come back to Canada and it gets even worse with the lack of sunshine. And within a couple months of being in Canada, I was bedridden, couldn't get out of bed for more than a couple hours a day. So I was really having to like plan around the limited energy that I had. And of course, went and saw my family doctor and was asking for more specific testing because I had been researching and come across functional medicine. And I was like, I want this, this, and this test. And she was like, no, like, we can't run that. I don't want to get audited for running that. And I was like, okay, well, I'm in the wrong place, clearly. And there weren't very many functional doctors in Canada at the time. There was maybe like 4 or 5 total. And so I traveled a couple hours to go see one of them, and they ran the whole gamut of testing. And of course, I had multiple infections and an autoimmune condition and hormone imbalances and things like that. So that was my introduction to functional medicine and functional testing. But when I started to follow their protocols, I was reacting to a lot of the things that they recommended, and I didn't really know how to convey what I was experiencing. So they actually ended up firing me as a patient because they thought that I was not following their protocols. But really, it was just I couldn't tolerate the protocols. I was reacting. I had something called mast cell activation, but nobody knew what that was at the time. So I continued to go from like naturopath to naturopath, doctor to doctor, and I'm just getting like worse and worse and worse. And so finally, I just decided, okay, like I need to go back to school and figure this out myself. And so I went back to school. I met my now coworker, Dr. Code, and with his guidance as well as having like going through all of the programs and learning everything for myself, have just been healing myself ever since.
Yeah, I hear you 100% on that. And I think that's so many of our stories is really why we even, have an interest at all in any of these things are for our own self-healing. And then it becomes like, well, we have all this knowledge and I really want to help other people get out of pain. So how can I turn this into something that I can offer to the world? So thank you for sharing your story. That's very, very neat.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah. So what I know you do a variety of things. You do coaching and you work specifically with something called is it FMT?
Yeah, there's different names for it. So the lay person name is fecal transplant or fecal microbiota transplant. We also might call it microbiota transfer, because really what we're doing, we're just taking microbes from a healthy person and transferring them into someone who may have some sort of health condition. So that's actually where I started. So when I first started working with my coworker, he very specifically wanted to focus on that and just have a clinic where that's all we did. And so that was all we did for about 2 years. And we thought that regulations were going to follow suit because, I mean, FMT, microbiota transfer, it's been used in Europe and other countries for many, many years at this point, and even just going back centuries, there's quite a history with it. But Canada decided to go the opposite way and then crack down with the regulations. So then coming into 2020, we started getting harassed by the Board of Physicians. And they didn't want us doing that anymore. And when they don't get their way, they essentially just take you to court over and over and over again until you go broke. So we decided to take a break from doing that. So we shut down, and COVID was happening anyway. So we decided to shut down and take a break and just see how things panned out. And then decided to branch out so that we could keep working with people. And in just collecting all of the clinical data anyways, like my mind is always trying to figure out, like, we have these responders, but then we have non-responders. Why are the non-responders not responding? And so my mind had started going down those pathways anyways. And so I was like, okay, like, let's branch out and let's try to figure out how we can help like everyone who comes to see us. And so that's when I did the functional medicine training. So I started my 3-year functional medicine training and then had Dr. Code as my mentor. And then we started working more online with people. And that way we were able to start seeing people no matter where they were all over the world, and then working in different facets. So it's not just, we don't just do the microbiota transfer anymore. We've branched out and using all of the functional medicine testing and principles. So yeah, that's how it happened.
That's amazing. So what would you say you split your time on right now? Is it mostly doing consultations with, you know, the health coaching side of things, and
Yeah,
or
I would say it's probably 60% online consultations for me right now, and then 40% in clinic doing some hands-on thing and helping our other practitioners as well. So we've got IV therapy happening in the colonics, and a little bit of like ozone stuff and oxygen and hyperbaric oxygen. And so I'm kind of the person who ties everyone together. Like, okay, what are our other practitioners experiencing? What does the data look like for them? Who's responding to what? Who isn't responding to what? And then tying it all together so that everyone knows.
that's amazing. So sounds like you got your hands plenty full of
For sure.
all kinds of things, many irons in the fire, so to speak.
Yeah.
So what would you say a, you know, typical client session with you looks like?
Yeah, so the flow of things is start out with a free clarity call just to make sure that we can even help them. And then within that free clarity call, figuring out where they need to go. So who do they need to see? Are they just going to see me, or are they going to see some of our other practitioners as well, or maybe someone who's within our network, because sometimes I end up referring out. And then if they move on to working with me, I'll just make sure we have the testing done that we need. And sometimes they already have it, sometimes they don't. And then sometimes it just needs to be refreshed. So we'll run the testing and then kind of get started more so in the initial consultation with some testing on hand. And then we will work through like nervous system regulation. We're working through the gut through various means. We're working on diet, and we're working on lifestyle.
Okay. That makes sense. And if you had to pick someone that, you know, is your ideal favorite type of client to work with, what would that sound like or look like?
I like the clients who are interested in the why. And so they're coming to sessions, and by the end of the session, they're like, oh my God, that's so cool. Like, I'm so glad you told me that, because that is so amazing. So yeah, the ones who are interested in, yeah, the why behind everything that we're doing.
So they're kind of more the ones that like to nerd out,
Yeah.
understand all the scientific stuff behind it, not just tell me what to do, tell me what to take.
Exactly.
You know,
Yeah.
they're really interested in their journey and yeah, figuring out their body for themselves and fully understanding the whole picture.
Exactly.
I love that too. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Is there anything else that you know, you want to talk about specifically about what you do or services that you offer? Anything that I guess, what would you want someone to ask you?
I mean, usually in session, one of the things I ask them is, okay, well, how were you hoping that we could help you? And then they kind of give me feedback on what they were interested in, and then I can kind of steer them in that direction, or maybe there's another direction if I think they need to course correct. But I don't know, I like doing a mix of everything, and like it creates so much work for me to have my hands in so many different areas, but it also keeps it interesting and fun. So I mean, I like doing the work with the microbiome and the microbiota transfer. I would just the turnaround from that is, there's been some situations where it's just been like such a miraculous turnaround. Like, you basically take someone from their deathbed, and then like within hours or the next day, they're like, oh my God, I feel amazing. So that's really exciting. And then I like that we've added on with the IV therapy, because when people are really down, you can give them like a quick boost of energy that'll last for maybe like a week, which is really great. And the biohacking stuff, like we use peptides too. We were trying to start up using more ozone, but unfortunately Health Canada's decided to crack down on that as well. So we can't really offer very much in the way of ozone right now. And then actually with the colonics, it's more than just flushing the person out. So we're usually doing implants of some kind with the colonic. So you can actually add things, if you have the right equipment, you can add things into the colonic. And so we're adding, like we'll do herbal colonics. We will do biofilm disrupting colonics, and that's actually key. Like if someone wants to do a microbiome transfer, you really have to make sure that you've disrupted the biofilm and reduced the microbes that are there ahead of time. And so the colonics are super good prep for microbiota transfer. Anyways, I think that
Wow.
I have maybe
Yeah.
more than answered that.
No, I love that. Thank you. And just to touch on what you mentioned about, the turnaround that you've seen, can you just give me maybe an example or two of, a story of someone that had certain thing and they did the transfer and what difference that made?
Yeah, so when we work with C. difficile infection, that's probably the most severe. So C. difficile is a life-threatening infection, and usually patients are basically told, oh, well, you have to do so many rounds of antibiotics before you can access FMT, and sometimes they still won't give them access to FMT. And it's gotten even worse in Canada over the last couple years. So ever since Rebiotics, and there's a second company that came out with a patented FMT product, the hospitals here are only supposed to use those two products, but there's supply issues. So there's even fewer places in Canada to get FMT now, and sometimes they just completely don't have supply. And so people will be on their deathbed. People are dying. And if they hear about us, I mean, they can come to us and then we can do it for them. And yeah, I have people who are in similar situations to you where it's like they're 85, 90 pounds and they're an adult, and they can't eat anything. Everything's just flushing right through. And within hours of doing an implant with them, you just see the color come back into their face, and you see improved tolerance to food, and then you see them 2 weeks later and they're gaining weight again. So yeah.
That's so amazing.
Cool.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that that some of these things are not being readily used and aren't being used and readily available, and where it could save a lot more lives for sure. Thank you for sharing that, Kristina. Brandon.
Yes. Awesome. My turn, huh?
Your turn.
Let's do it. Awesome. First off, Kristina, that's amazing. I've always wanted to learn more about the fecal transplant and how they can help people. That's really cool stuff, right? So mind blowing, and doing a great service. That's phenomenal, right? Thank you for sharing. That's good. Good. Yeah. So I'll let you fire away with the question, right? I'm ready to go. Right.
So similar question.
Similar story. Yeah. What's my story? Yeah. So
Yeah.
what got me into this to begin with was actually my wife's health journey back in 2007, 2008, right out of school, fresh and gung-ho, right? Remove the source, the body can heal. Thank goodness I had that attitude at the time. But my wife, she started experiencing brain fog, fatigue, eczema, poor health issues out of the blue, which was really bizarre for her. She was always very sharp, very high, a highly energetic person. And she went through the medical route. I kind of let her. She was more medically minded at that time. I tried to, I was adjusting her and doing all the things, but I let her. I was like, yeah, there's got to be an answer, right? I still had some faith in people figuring stuff out. I was pretty fresh and green, right? But it was about the fifth medical doctor she went to go see. She had to wait 8 months to go see, and we were all excited. I was like, man, this is going to be the answer. This is great. He was it was supposed to be really good. And I remember like yesterday, I was standing in the driveway. She came home from the appointment, and I was like, what did he say? I met her out of the car, and she's like, I don't know. He just gave me antibiotics and anti-inflammatories. I think it was actually Cipro at the time. It's pretty crazy. So it was around a Cipro, and it was anti-inflammatories. And I was like, well, what did he say caused it? And she literally said, he said he didn't know. He said, what causes anything? Like literally verbatim. And I was just like, oh, I was just crushed. I looked at those prescriptions that, she hadn't filled them yet. She just had the papers. And I was like, don't fill those. This is going to make your health worse. I was like, let's figure this out. And I remember right before I left school, this gentleman came in. He was a DO, he was a DC, he was doing functional medicine. He gave like an hour presentation, and my mind was blown. I was like, I've always loved natural health and supplements. I was always kind of enamored with that growing up as a teenager, and always be in the health food store looking at supplements and like, begging my mom to buy stuff like that. Anyway, so I was like, okay, this is amazing. So I watched that, presentation by this functional medicine doc. He was an ND, and the guy had like 3 degrees. He's brilliant, and he was just thriving, and he was telling these stories about how he's helping people. At the time, he's using Biotics and Apex and these companies. And I was like, wow, that's cool. And I had just done a call with Dr. Dan Kalish, based out of the Bay Area. And before this happened, because I was kind of curious and I wanted to get some more information on his training for practitioners. And I was like, let me help you figure this out. So long story short, I started training with Dr. Kalish, and I read all I could and absorbed all I could in this field. And literally just putting her like on a paleo diet, giving her some basic adrenal support, basic nutrients, getting her to sleep better. She was within her 6 or 7 months, she was literally fixed, if you will, right? Like her eczema gone, brain fog gone. We actually found out through all the testing and all the work we did with her, she had subclinical hypothyroidism. Wasn't full blown like she needed, levo or the prescription medications, but it was getting there, right? And we were able to correct that. So I really have a passion for hypothyroidism. I see quite a few women with hypothyroidism to this day. So that really, boy, that was my first patient, if you will. Functional medicine was my wife, and walking her through that was just so rewarding. And I was like, man, if I can help her, I want to help everybody else like this, right? So I just, I dove, head first into as much training as I could. I did some more training with Dr. Dan Kalish. I actually stumbled across Dr. Dan Pompa. That back in the day, he was kind of hard to find. Back in 2009, I found his website and I listened to all his talks he had online. And I was like, wow, this guy's a stud. He's got it figured out. And then I formally trained with him a few years later in his platinum group with practitioners and doctors. And I've been continuing to learn ever since. I got certified in a couple different, functional health certifications, if you will, to work as a functional medicine health coach. So I do see people virtually all over the country, which is really rewarding. And that's what got me into it. I don't think I've adjusted for a long time. I've kind of stopped because I'm getting too rusty. Even my family is like, I haven't adjusted forever. But this is really my forte, if you will. I feel like I'm a perpetual student, just constantly, marinating in the space and learning all I can every day. It's pretty exciting. And in this space, you definitely have to, right? To stay on top of everything. But anyway, so that's what I do now. I see, a range of clients, mostly females. I see some males, hypothyroidism, chronic fatigue, mold toxicity, a few Lyme disease clients. It just really rewarding, though, to walk people through these steps in functional medicine and get them their life back. And over the last 4 or 5 years, I've actually been training with Dr. Todd Watts and Dr. Jay Davidson from Cellcore Biosciences. I actually met them training with Dr. Pompa's group. They were like a class or two ahead of me, right? And really a stand-up gentleman. I've learned a lot through them and using their products from Cellcore, which is, I think, hands down one of the best companies out there in the functional medicine space. And anyway, so that's my story, right? So,
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. I mean, it's usually us or a family member that
exactly
gets that ball rolling. And
you bet. I've always been pretty healthy. I've been able to tweak my health and fine tune it and biohack it, but I've never really had anything wrong. Thank goodness, knock on wood, right? So,
right.
but to
if
see
you do,
exactly. But just to see the going from like feeling decent to average to feeling, whoa, amazing, right? Like after my first few coffee enemas, I was like, wow, I wish I did that years ago. Or, just, doing these, these certain biohacks and these certain protocols. It's like, wow, I was down here, now I'm up here and I feel just, superhuman. It's pretty amazing. So anyway, but
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect.
That's great. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah,
And
you bet.
what would you say a typical client session with you, what does that look like? You know,
Yeah, yeah.
if
For
you
the
like
first yeah, great question. For the first 6 months, we get pretty intense. I meet with them every other week for about an hour, sometimes a few minutes more. But you take someone, and my typical client is usually someone who's been to the 10 or 20 other doctors or practitioners, and usually they're kind of like, this is my last hope, right? I hear that a lot, and no pressure, right? But I do get quite a bit of that, the chronically ill and people that need the help, which is really rewarding because my goal is to, I want to be their last practitioner they work with, not to replace, a medical doctor or anything, but I want to be the last practitioner that actually gets to that root cause and figures out what they have going on and fix that as much as humanly possible, right? So that's really rewarding. And yeah, I get really hands-on with people. We go through dietary approaches to kill off inflammation, and there's no perfect diet for anybody and everybody, but we need to kind of figure that what that is for each individual. I do lean more towards animal-based carnivore, keto, paleo, if you will. I see a lot of really good results with that approach for most people. Just killing inflammation down dietarily and feed them. A lot of people are under eating, right? Nutrients. So we, feed their body, we fill in the nutrient gaps, and that I hold their hand through as we walk them through, the detox process after we pinpoint what their root cause is potentially, right? So
for sure.
yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes
And
just,
as you know, yeah. And as you know, it can take one to 4 years really to get someone 100% better if they've been chronically ill. One thing Dr. Todd Watts always taught me, for every decade someone's been chronically ill, it can take them a year and a half to get better, right? So, educate them on that. And we get really intense the first 6 or 7 months. And then we definitely, stay in contact after that every 4 to 12 weeks, every 4 to 8 weeks, depending on the person, right? So yeah, check in on them, make sure they're improving still and staying on protocol, right? So
yes, I love that. I love that you're doing it every other week with people. And that
yeah.
way, you don't feel like they don't feel like, they're, it's almost like you're going, coming alongside them, holding their hand in a
Yep.
way, keeping
Yep.
them on track, keeping them motivated. And
Exactly. Yep.
yeah,
Yep. It seems to work really well. And they do need that initially. They need that, a lot of hand holding. And there's a lot of text messaging and phone calls and stuff in between, initially. But once they get in a groove, they really start getting improvement, and they start figuring things out. And it's pretty rewarding to see that, like Kristina was saying, someone who's really ill initially, and to see them change and just the vibrance come back in their face, the energy come back, it's extremely rewarding, right? It's really cool. So and there, there's always a few ups and downs as we're going through the detox process, flushing out parasites, working on mold, heavy metal detox. It's not always roses and peaches, but kind of hold their hand and kind of keep them centered and get them through it. But there's nothing more rewarding than seeing them come out the other side with their health restored, for the most part, as much as possible. And their hope for the quality of life has come back, and they're ecstatic. It's really cool. So
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So if you had, someone or a set of people that have certain conditions, or just what would your favorite ideal client look like, the people that you
Yeah.
like to work with?
Boy, great question. I would say just the one who's ready to make a change. I get some tire kickers and some, oh yeah, I want to help a little bit, but they're not quite ready. They're not willing to do what it takes to really get better, right? And it's hard to kind of stand by and just kind of help them here and there. I'm kind of all or nothing guy, right? I want to take a step back, look at you holistically, and fix everything. Sometimes it's a little overwhelming and it's too much for some people, which I get, and either, they'll work with somebody else, or they'll come back a few years later and work with me. But it's really the clients that are compliant. They do what I say, boy, it works, pretty much all the time, which is pretty amazing. And, it's a different timeline for everybody, but I really want to work with somebody who's sick of being sick and tired, who wants to get their life back. And is willing to do what it takes, and is willing to listen and comply. Obviously, it's difficult when you get the clients or patients that think they know it all, and they go a different route, doesn't quite work out, right? So yeah, just someone who's ready for a change, sick of being sick and who's willing to listen to me and do what it takes. Not that it's, impossible and extremely hard. It's definitely doable, but, someone who's willing to hang in there to see it through, basically. That's my favorite client. And yeah, it's pretty
Absolutely.
rewarding. Sure.
Yeah, someone who's just, they're at the end of the rope and
Yeah, exactly.
trying to
Yep.
make the changes, put in the effort for
Yep.
sure.
Yep, exactly. And really the ones that, are willing to maybe to put aside the daily Starbucks and the extra widgets and gadgets. It's like, they can afford to get their life back if they make it a priority. And that's a big thing too, that work with people. So, it's not just money, it's actions, it's time, it's doing certain things, right? So, but that's pretty cool when you do see that benefit, working with them. It's really cool.
Yeah, for sure. And what kind of, can you give us examples of maybe some, a person or two of, had certain conditions, certain things
Yeah.
going on, and
Yeah.
the things that those lifestyle and, the detoxing,
Yeah.
made in them.
Yeah, and it's amazing. Lots of amazing stories. I think my favorite story of a client, I think I've been working with him for 6.5, 7 years now. Pretty amazing. It's kind of, I get goosebumps every time I think about it, right? But this is a gentleman. He came to me. I did a talk about type 2 diabetes. He came to that. And he's interested in that. He started working with me. Lo and behold, more of a history of him, though. He actually was diagnosed with Parkinson's 11 years before, and his quality of life was just in the bucket. His wife had to drive him everywhere. He would fall asleep and get brain fog and have to take a nap at 1 or 2 p.m. in the afternoon. Constant care from his wife. She never left his side, that kind of thing. So, and he had to quit his teaching position as a biology teacher at a high school. He said it was difficult, right, to say the least. But he had type 2 diabetes, and I was like, okay, let's start working on that. He took action. He did what I said, and we did some great nutraceutical therapies. We just started some detox stuff. Within about 3 months, we were able to pretty much reverse his type 2 diabetes, which is pretty rewarding, right? Which can be very doable and very rewarding. And at the time, I was right in the middle of working with Dr. Dan Pompa and his Platinum Group, and I was like, hey, patient X, right? His name was Lawrence. He won't mind if I tell him his first name, but I was like, hey, Lawrence, type 2 diabetes, looking really good, right? How about we start tackling Parkinson's, right? And I was like, not saying that I have any experience with Parkinson's, because I didn't, I had zero. I was like, but Dr. Pompa was actually relaying some information about clients he was working with Parkinson's. And he was actually spoon feeding all of us his protocols and talking about it. And I was like, hey, I'm going to be Dr. Pompa's conduit. Are you willing to do what he says? And I'd be willing to help you and work, through Dr. Pompa, right? At that time, I had Dr. Pompa on Voxer, and, we'd meet every week, and it was pretty awesome. And Dr. Pompa told me what to do with him. And one of the steps was he had 18 amalgam fillings at the time, right? Anybody who knows about the amalgam fillings, they are 50% mercury by weight. Every time you brush your teeth, drink hot liquids, chew food, it releases that mercury vapor. Loves the brain, loves the cell membrane itself, right? So that was a big source of toxin. Not saying that was the only one, but it was a big source, right? Everybody has a different size toxic bucket that's full of stuff. Something I learned from Dr. Pompa. This gentleman's toxic bucket was really full, and that mercury toxicity was potentially a big part of it. He had the resources to get those out right away, thank goodness. Within about 6 or 7 months, he got those out. We were able to go full, body and then brain detox, triple, quadruple brain nutrients. And literally, so it was about 12 months working on his Parkinson's, if you will. It improved so great that he's now, to this day, he's able to drive himself anywhere he wants. His wife doesn't have to be with him 24/7. He doesn't fall asleep at 1 or 2 in the afternoon. He stays awake till 10, 11 o'clock at night. I tell him, get to bed by 10, but he doesn't always listen. But he literally has his life back, which is amazing. And it's just such a blessing. Obviously he still has the diagnosis, Parkinson's. He still has a very, very mild tremor. But I would say we halted the progression, I would say, of the disease process, right? And we were able to maximize his life, and he's extremely happy. He's very active, and it's just so rewarding. So it's something like that. It's like, we got to a big root cause for him. He did have some parasite issues. He did have a little bit of mycotoxins we cleared up as well. So it's always what I've learned over the years. It's usually not just one toxin.
Right.
When I got into this, like, oh, it's lead toxicity or it's mercury. It's usually, boy, it's a combination of stuff. It's a toxic soup, right? It's mold, it's heavy metals, it's this and that, it's parasites. But what I love about we took it a notch further using Cellcore Bioscience products with him, walked him through that protocol, and we're able to, go through that protocol correctly and even improve his health even more so. Which is really rewarding, and it just shows you, boy, if you get to that root cause, it can be XYZ condition. You remove the source, you give the body the proper nutrients, the body can heal. It wants to, and it's trying to every day. You just need to remove these things out of the way, so it will heal, which is pretty rewarding. It's so exciting, just gets me out of bed every day, and I just love helping people in this capacity, right? So that's my favorite example, and we're actually close friends now. Which is really cool. He's actually my dad passed away when I was 10 years old, and he's at exactly the same age my dad would be if he was still alive. So it's like, it's kind of a cool, we've formed this close bond. I go up and visit him frequently, and I would say we're close family friends now, more so than client and practitioner, right? So anyway.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, really cool. Yep.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for sharing that, and thank you so much for what you do. You're literally changing lives, and same for you, Kristina. Just thank you for, what you're offering and helping deliver to the world and making differences every day. It's just, it's why we do what we do, is because it is so rewarding, and I can't imagine doing anything else than making, big impact in the lives of others.
For sure.
I did want to ask both of you kind of like, I'll start with you, Brandon. If someone, was thinking, oh, what if I have mold toxicity? What if I have heavy metals? What do I do? Like, what tests do you run? Like, what would you recommend for me? What would they?
Yeah. Great question. So obviously, if they want to call me, we can talk, we can do a little questionnaire. History is a big part of it, right? There's some great, history and, very specific questions you can ask them. If they don't call me, there are some symptoms to look out for, right? There's certain ones to look out for. Mold toxicity is chronic fatigue, joint pain, chronic sinus issues, chest pain, a lot of the brain fog. Those are kind of your classic ones. Having to urinate a lot just to kind of put a plug in for mold, because I see a lot of that lately. But yeah, there's some great resources out there. So a good history can actually give you a good 80-90% of what you need. But then I also love to there's some great lab tests that you can do. I'll use Vibrant Labs for their mycotoxin testing, or Mosaic, which used to be Great Plains. You can start with what's called an oat test or a mycotoxin urine test. I love the oat test because that first page is kind of devoted to potential, mold overgrowth or colonization, which, can lead you to do more testing. But those are some really good tests to see if you have a body burden of mold, or mold is growing inside your gut, which definitely can happen. But then there's even easier tests. If you just want to know, hey, do I have mold toxicity in my house? I love getting those little petri dishes from immunolytics.com. Let them sit out for an hour or two. And if there's more than 4 colonies growing, you probably have a mold issue, right? And then you could do more advanced stuff like the ERMI test. It's like a Swiffer dust test that you send in and you get DNA tested, right? So there's it's becoming a lot easier to find these things online, to do your own home testing, which is really cool, because you really, boy, if you're sick, you need to make sure you're living in a clean environment, which is, hands down, the most important thing, right? And then working with another client recently, she moved from a moldy home, but she took all her clothes and mattress and stuff with her. We're finding out, boy, that just infected the new house, right? So you have to think about all these things. I'm going down a rabbit hole from your question, but I could talk forever on this subject. But there's some great tests you can do, and that's what's so cool about functional medicine testing. There's some great urine tests out there. I love doing complete blood work as well. That gives us a lot of clues. But there's some really amazing. I love the total tox burden test from Vibrant Labs, which looks at heavy metal toxicity, mold issues, right? And then non-heavy metal chemicals like pesticides and, glyphosates and other chemicals and solvents that you can be exposed to, right? So that's what's so fascinating. A lot of people need to see that on black and white and see if they actually have that inside their body or not, right? But then you need to also look at your environment, make sure it's clean as well, right? So there's some at-home tests you can do for that too, for environment. But,
For sure.
yeah,
Thank you. Thank you
you
so
bet.
much.
Mhm.
And Kristina, I wanted to specifically ask, what would, if someone was having just like gut issues, feeling like their whole microbiome is out of balance, what kind of tests would you run for that?
Yeah, so we would run either PCR or RNA stool testing. We do a series of breath tests with them. So not just with lactulose, which is kind of like the gold standard if you want to diagnose SIBO, but we see that like the small intestinal issues go beyond just SIBO. So sometimes there's like starch intolerance, which is due to starch loving overgrowth, or like polyol intolerance. So you can do a lot with breath testing. The technology is just getting better and better. We look at blood work as a way to point us in other directions as well, combining that with the health history. So if indicated, then we would maybe go on to look at metals and mold as well. I'm a big fan of the mosaic oat test too. So
Yes, it's a great one, right? Yes, I
yes,
love
that
it.
one's big on my list.
Yeah, perfect. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's kind of what we would do.
Perfect. Yeah, and if anybody here is wondering what's an OAT test, it stands for organic acids test. So yeah.
Yes, thank you for clarifying. I remember the first time I heard her oat, and I was like, "What is this?" I was thinking oatmeal. That was
I
years
was
ago.
thinking
Thank you for
oatmeal.
clarifying. Yeah, that's smart.
Yeah,
Nice.
absolutely. Anything else that you wanted to explain or share with our audience, Kristina or Brandon, that we haven't already covered?
Boy. Um, I don't know. I just, I feel like, hey, at least, reach out and contact, somebody in the field of functional medicine. If your health is struggling, you're not getting answers from the medical community. It's really sad what I see. Obviously, medical community, we love them. If I'm having a heart attack or getting a car accident, take me to the medical, take me to the ER, the great hospitals. That's where they really shine. But unfortunately, with people's chronic illnesses and autoimmune conditions or chronic illnesses, they just struggle, right? I just see so many times where people have what seems like obvious autoimmune condition or a toxic burden or gut issue going on, where just the medical doctor just has no idea, right? And they just throw up their hands and they literally say, it's in your mind, you're making it up, your blood work's fine, as so are you. I've heard that so many times. If you want some more answers, reach out to somebody, in the functional medicine space, do a discovery call, like Kristina and I both do. I'll hop on the phone for 15 minutes, talk to you, listen to your story, see if you're a candidate or not, and recommend, hey, let's at least do a good history and consult, see what you got going on if we need to dig further, or if I feel like you're not a good candidate, point you in the right direction, right? But there is some hope, with no matter what you have going on, not saying, we're going to cure everything, but we can optimize and potentially halt progression of disease processes, maybe reverse them or put them into remission, more so is a more PC way to say it, and just get your life back, right? There's hope, right? And in this field, I really feel like this is how all medicine should be practiced, right? It's like going towards the root cause, is really where it should be. But yeah, reach out if you're having issues, get some more answers. There's some more out there for sure. If you've never talked to somebody in this space, or if you have and didn't have a great experience, boy, keep looking. There's people out there that can really help you. Right?
Absolutely. And how can people contact you and Kristina? Can you give us some contact info or social media or wherever you're best found?
Yeah, so with me, I'm not very techie guy, right? You can reach me at my Brandon at northwestfunctionalhealthcoaching.com. My phone number, maybe I can post my phone number on the bottom of your YouTube thing, or I could just tell everybody what it is. But yeah, I'm working on some Instagram stuff and working on a new, my website's kind of, it's half built, so don't judge, but but yeah, maybe I'll put my info at the bottom of the YouTube page here. If you can attach that might be easier. But yeah, I do have them call me, do like the free 15-minute phone calls to discuss what you have going on. That's how I rock and roll. So I'll let Kristina explain her info.
Yeah, so you can email me, so info at mindmoodmicrobes.ca. Can also use the contact forms on our website. So our clinic website is www.viiv.ca, and then my personal website is www.mindmoodmicrobes.ca. So that's probably the best way. I am on Instagram, same handle, mind.mood.microbes. And then I was just going to add one more thing because you made me think of it when you were speaking. So I resonated with everything you just said, but I think there's something to be said for actually working with a practitioner. So I have mixed feelings about like this whole realm of social media and affiliate marketing and people getting access. Like I see like a lot of people just being granted access to like the Cellcore protocols, for example. And so I've had a number of people come to me they just got access from someone who's doing affiliate marketing, and they're like, oh, well, it didn't work, and like, look at my labs and everything's even worse and blah, blah, blah. It's like, I think just the benefit of working with a practitioner, so things can be adjusted to the patient's unique needs. That's so important.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure. I don't throw my code out there, and you definitely it helps to work with somebody, right? Because but if you do wrong, it can make things worse potentially. They just don't know why, and you need to step back. And I agree with work with somebody one-on-one is very important for sure. Yeah, great point. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you for bringing that up, Kristina. Martha, what are your thoughts on all of this? Are you just like, what?
I am just like, what? I mean, you know it, every single episode, I am listening intently and I'm like, wow, so much information out there. And by the way, I'm totally not in the genius field that all of you are in. I don't study this. I'm not used to this language. And as someone this is all foreign to them, I try to really listen and grasp that information and try to digest it in a way where it's a lot more simpler for me to understand. And all in all, you guys are saving lives. You guys are helping people out that have been looking for answers like Kristina was, or have been wanting to help their loved ones like Brandon has been. And I admire that. I'm inspired. That's amazing. And it's part of your story. And I'm so grateful that each of you have shared it on today's call, because that really is so important. And it's why anyone who's listening or anyone who has met you is going to feel that much more connected to each of you. So I feel happy. I'm happy right now.
Nice.
Yeah. This has been
awesome.
Yeah, I'm so excited also to, ask Brandon, if someone was like, hey, Brandon, what's this On Purpose show? Like, Alyssa invited me. What do you think about it? Should I make it? Should I not? What would be some words that you would share?
Like, heck yes, get on there, right? Get on the next episode, watch all the existing ones, right? Yeah, and thank you, Alyssa, for putting this on. This is a great idea to do this, to help, direct people to a practitioner that's a good fit with them potentially, or just even learn about this space. I think that's just phenomenal. I'm glad you're doing that. Get the awareness out there, and it's just a great idea, and I'm glad you're running with it. That's perfect. Yeah.
Thank you, Brandon. It's my pleasure.
You bet. Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, thank you, Brandon. I agree. And Kristina, should I make it? Should I not? What should I do? What would be some thoughts that you?
Yeah, definitely. I would encourage other practitioners to have a look at the show and watch a couple of the episodes. I went back before we came on today and I was watching some of the other episodes. It's such, I think, a good way to expand the network as well. So yeah, that's what I kind of took away from it. I'm like, okay, like here we go. I'm going to expand my network. I have more people to refer to.
Exactly. Yep. That's
Absolutely.
true.
And we will be just dropping a little hint. This is exclusive for practitioners who have been on the On Purpose show. We are creating a community call. I don't know if Alyssa wanted me to even share that.
Oh, awesome. Nice.
It is exclusively for the On Purpose show practitioners, and I am really excited to help Alyssa out on that. So yeah, go ahead, Alyssa. Take it away.
Thank you, Martha. Absolutely. Yeah, we're super excited to have everybody be able to gather, you know, we've probably had a couple dozen practitioners on the show over the past year. And so it's nice for them to be able to connect with like-minded people. Because yeah, I mean, we don't all do everything. So when we need to refer to someone else, it's nice to know who to do that and who specializes in what. And you know, to be able to help our clients get the best treatment and care, and you know, help as many people as possible. So that is the goal of this. And then, you know, obviously we can't have 24 people on a show and talk about what they do, but we can, you know, keep connected throughout the months and weeks after the show, and be able to, you know, meet a lot more people that way. So we're super excited to have that.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yes. Well, we are coming up on our 1 hour mark, and we want to be considerate of your day and time. So we will wrap this up. But thank you so much, Kristina and Brandon, for being here
You bet.
and sharing all the beautiful work that you are doing in the world. Yeah, we just can't thank you enough.
You bet. Thanks for inviting us. We really appreciate it. I really appreciate it. Kristina does too, I'm sure. This is great. This is great.
Thank you again for making it. And
Yeah.
we will email your bios and any other information that you've shared with us that you don't mind us sharing with.
Okay.
So yeah,
Perfect.
thank you again.
Sounds
Have
great.
a beautiful rest
Awesome.
of the day.
You guys have a good one. Take care.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.
You
Bye-bye.
too.
Bye.
Bye
Bye-bye.
all. Thank you,
Bye.
Martha.
Thank you.
Take care.